everybody. This is the 9th Jazz and Jesus Livestream. I hope everything's working. I hope the microphone's working. And we're going to get going here in a second. I'm probably going to play a little bit because I have time to play. I have time to play before I talk about what I'm going to talk about, which is Taylor Swift. That's right. I'm talking about Taylor Swift today. For those of you guys wondering, why on earth would you talk about her? Because she's the biggest artist on the planet, and a lot of people in our culture are obsessed with her. And I'm a musician, and she's a musician, and I think it's interesting. I just think it's interesting. She released an album last month. I have a very nuanced perspective on Taylor Swift. I neither love her or hate her, but I have some interesting thoughts to share. Perspectives as a Christian and a musician. So just making sure we're live on Instagram here. We should be. I don't know why we wouldn't be. Okay, cool. And I'm going to play a little bit. Why? Why is it not working? That song is What a Beautiful Name. Missed you guys. For those of you wondering why I was not streaming for the past couple of weeks, I was in Chicago on vacation. I was in Chicago, Minneapolis, and Milwaukee with my husband. We had a wonderful time. We got to see the fall leaves turn. I had never been to that part of the country before. I live in Phoenix, Arizona, and we don't really get seasons here. And so it was really, really cool to be able to go to Minneapolis, Milwaukee, and Chicago. We loved it. We really enjoyed it. I know that part of the country can be miserably, bitterly cold, but we were there just at the right time when the weather was still good. And so, yeah, that's where I was the past couple weeks. That's why I wasn't here to be able to live stream with you guys, but I am back. And like I said when I got on here, today's topic, if you want to call it that, is my thoughts on Taylor Swift. And again, for why? Because she's the biggest artist on the planet. I'm a musician. She's a musician. Our culture's obsession with her is very interesting, to say the least. And like I said, I have somewhat of a nuanced perspective on her. I don't think she's Satan incarnate. I do not think she's a Christian. And I think a lot of her lyrics are very explicit, particularly on her new album, which I did listen to. I listened to most of Taylor Swift's albums, maybe not all the way through, not because I am a big fan, but again, because I'm a musician in the music industry, and I want to hear what the biggest artist on the planet is doing, because to me, it is and I want to see how people react to it. And so her last album just came out a month ago, and it was quite explicit. Probably her most explicit, in fact, definitively her most explicit album that she's ever put out. I thought some of the songs were musically catchy, and obviously the production was very tight because it's Max Martin. But let me first back up and give some of my kind of broad thoughts on Taylor Swift. So, first of all, the good. I think she is an incredibly impressive performer. I did go to see her at the Eras tour because Emma has been a big fan of her music for a very long time. Like I said, I'm less so, but I like some of her songs, some of her older songs. But I took Emma as a birthday / Christmas present to the Eras tour, and I saw this woman perform 3 hours and 45 minutes of her own music. I think about 45 songs straight of her own music. And if any of you guys, I mean, have done any performing at all, where you have to perform an entire set of your original music, it's very difficult to do. It's very difficult, particularly for singers, to have the stamina to sing through all of that. And she did for 45 songs, which was massively impressive. Obviously, the show was incredibly impressive from a production standpoint. The production on that show was the best production I have ever seen on a show in my life. And I've, seen off-Broadway shows, and like it just blew it out of the water. It was insane. So seeing her live was very, very impressive. And seeing that performance was very, very impressive. I do think that she is a clever lyricist, can be a clever lyricist. I think her lyrics on this previous album are the weakest lyrics she's ever written. I think she tried too hard on this previous album, but I do think she can be a clever lyricist. As far as being a profound lyricist, I would not call Taylor Swift a profound lyricist because Taylor Swift does not talk about profound things. Taylor Swift has made a name for herself talking almost exclusively about romantic relationships, which is fine. That's what a lot of people do talk about. We don't really write songs about romantic relationships, but that's mostly because that's not what we feel like we're called to do. For me, my love life is wonderfully boring. I've been happily married for 8 years. So there's not a whole lot I could say and write about in a love song, but Taylor Swift has written, obviously she's famous for writing love songs, breakup songs, things like that. But those things are not particularly profound topics. Those are topics that most people write about, almost everybody. Now, she may do it better than most people, and you could make an argument for that. Maybe I would, because she can be very clever as a lyricist. But as far as being a profound lyricist, in my opinion, to be a profound lyricist, you have to write about profound things. And Taylor Swift doesn't do that very often, okay? Now, so that's kind of my overall thought about her. I think that she is a decent musician and guitarist, although you don't really hear her play a lot of guitar anymore. She did a little bit on the Eras tour. She's a good guitarist. She's not ridiculous, obviously. She's not John Mayer, but she's good. She's definitely competent. And she's a pretty good singer, too. She has a pretty good voice. Obviously, she's known mostly as a songwriter. And she has been, over the years, a very good songwriter. She's been able to write a lot of very good songs that have gotten an immense amount of radio play, obviously, immense amount of just play everywhere. And that's part of the reason why she's the biggest artist on the planet. She is talented as a songwriter. However, the last few albums, I would say probably since her Folklore and Evermore albums, which in my opinion were her best albums, lyrically and musically. And again, even those, like I said, I've listened to them, but it's not really a style of music I frequently listen to. I listen to a lot of jazz fusion and progressive metal, and Taylor Swift does not do either of those things. So, but I did think Folklore and Evermore were good albums, lyrically and musically. But since then, I feel that Taylor Swift has gone downhill. I think part of this, I think, is that she's not giving herself enough time. As a songwriter, you need to give yourself time between albums, or especially if they're big, long albums, which her previous album was like over 30 songs. to rest and to have inspiration strike you and not to force things out or churn things out. And I think the last several albums have felt churned out. And I know that a lot of people who are, so it says extremely boring harmonically. Literally, you've got tiny little snippets of ideas on here that are a million times better. Well, thank you. But to be fair, Taylor Swift and I do not make the same type of music. I am jazz trained. Okay. Yeah, she's boring harmonically. But I mean, that's going to be the case for the vast majority of pop music. The reason I talk about her is because she is the biggest artist on the planet. And so billions of people listen to this person. Okay. And so, at least for a decent amount of her career, I mean, she's never focused on harmony. She's always been a melody writer. She's always been a lyric writer. Okay. I focus a lot on harmony because I know a lot of harmony. Again, I'm jazz trained. And so it's just a difference. It's just a difference as a musician. Right. And yeah, in terms of playing an instrument, yeah, I play an instrument better than Taylor Swift does. But Taylor Swift has written immense amounts of hits that have been streamed billions of times worldwide. And I'm not going to sit here and downplay that. I don't think that's very easy to do at all. Okay. And so, her last few albums, I don't think she's been great with her songwriting, but she has written a lot of great songs. Or at least a lot of songs that are catchy enough and impactful enough that billions of people have listened to them. However, to go into the criticism of Taylor Swift, again, I'm not going to. Are you referring to harmony vocally or harmonizing chords the vocal melody? Taylor Swift does not focus on her chord choices very much. Taylor Swift does not focus on harmonizing things in interesting ways with chords. I don't mean vocally. I mean with chords. She is a melody writer. She is a lyric writer. And again, for most of her career has been a pretty good one. Until I would say the last several years. Now, that brings me to that. Taylor Swift, over the last many years, I would say probably since her Reputation album, has gotten more and more raunchy and more explicit. Now, I don't hold her to the standard that I would hold. I don't hold her to the standard that I would hold Christian artists. If a Christian artist is being raunchy and explicit, which, believe it or not, does happen, I will get on here and blast the heck out of them for it, okay? Taylor Swift, I don't hold to that standard, right? Because Taylor Swift, I mean, I don't know if she's called herself a Christian, but she certainly is not a Christian artist, and I would not say she's a Christian. She certainly doesn't live like one or write like one, okay? And I do... Something that I have criticized her for and been vocal about criticizing her for is that she did start off very family friendly. Most of her music, of course, this was years ago, but in her country era, was family friendly. It was listened to by teenagers. And her music has increasingly become more and more raunchy and explicit over time, to where her last album... I think it's no surprise it features Sabrina Carpenter, somebody who has made her name off of being raunchy and explicit and other bad words that I'm not going to say on the stream. Sabrina Carpenter guest featured on a song. And even the songs that ironically, the song that Sabrina Carpenter sang on Taylor Swift's latest album was probably one of the less raunchy ones. Taylor Swift, on her latest album, has an entire song dedicated to her fiance's genitals. Which I looked at the lyrics, I glanced at them, and then moved on. And that was it. Because that's gross, and I don't want to hear a song about somebody's genitals. Which is, even for Taylor Swift, is so gross and so far. And it's sad. it's sad too, because also, like, what a gross, disrespectful way to talk about somebody. Of course, somebody you're not married to, but even if they were married, it would still be gross. Um, yeah, why does everyone have to talk about? Why is that interesting? Yeah, I mean, people love to write songs about sex. They do, um, and I I think we've, over the course of the last several decades, we've said far enough about it. I don't know how much more there is to write about it. To me, there are far more fascinating topics to write about than that. Um, and that and it also just like far more edifying topics to write about. But again, I have that worldview. I'm a Christian, and Taylor Swift does not share that with me. But you can still avoid writing a song about your fiance's genitals. But yeah, it's just it's gross and it's disgusting and it's sad. It's sad because, again, if Sabrina Carpenter did this, I still think it's bad. I still think it's wrong. But I would be like, okay, at least we know to expect that from her. But Taylor Swift did used to be family friendly, and she kind of penned herself as the family friendly pop singer. And of course, she hasn't been that in a long time. But just to see how far she has fallen from that view is sad. And I mean, what I would say is, I don't think anybody under the age of 18 should be listening to her. And by the way, many of her songs, not all of them, I usually say go song by song basis, but many of her songs Christians shouldn't be listening to at all, even if they're over 18, because it's just gross, filthy stuff. Like, it just is at this point. She has a lot of songs that I think Christians could listen to, and it would be okay. But you have to keep in mind that, she's going to do whatever is going to keep her famous. And she's convinced that because Sabrina Carpenter got so famous for being so raunchy, that is also what she should do. Even if it means, I mean, I don't know if her fiancé is embarrassed. I know I would be. I know I would. If somebody wrote a song like that, if someone wrote a song about me, oh my gosh, God forbid, like that, I would be mortified. Even if it was my spouse, that'd be grosser. It would just, it's so gross. Anyways. Regardless, her last album was a little catchier musically. I thought the one before it was not catchy musically at all. It was like the Tortured Poets Society or something. That one I didn't feel was catchy musically at all because there were no choruses. I couldn't get a strong, punchy chorus out of any of the songs on that album. This new one, I feel like does have stronger music writing and melody writing a little bit, but the lyrics are so explicit that most of the album I wouldn't even listen to, and I wouldn't recommend that people listen to it. So, long story short, is Taylor Swift a witch? Probably not. Is Taylor Swift the devil? Probably not. Is Taylor Swift an explicit pop singer that Christians should approach her music with extreme discretion? Yes. At least at this point, that seems to be the case. Is Taylor Swift a horrifically bad musician? No. She can write a song. She doesn't always do it well, but she's written like 500 of them. So let's hope that 40 of them are good, right? She has released more music than me by far, and she's released more popular music than me by far. And so, again, there is something to be said for the fact of she has written hundreds of songs, and many, many, many of them have been streamed millions, if not billions of times, and that is a very, 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 very hard thing to do. Okay? So props to her for that. Is she going to win any awards for her technical ability on an instrument? Absolutely not. Does she know a ton of music theory? Probably not. She probably knows some at a basic level. She's not a jazz player. She is what she is. She is talented. That she's not the most talented singer either. I think Ariana Grande is leagues ahead of her as a singer. She's not the most talented chord writer in modern pop. That would probably be Charlie Puth. But she is massively popular. And you don't get that by being awful. You don't. Her last album was not very good. Her last two albums, her second to last album was bad musically. This previous album was pretty awful lyrically. I think there was a line in this last album that was literally, the line was, "Did you girl boss too close to the sun?" Which is just a terrible line. It is funny, but yeah. I have to play all that stuff in string quartet arrangement form for people's weddings. I'm talking Christian weddings. Yeah, I've had to do it too. We gig too. I've had to play all sorts of Taylor Swift stuff. The last gig that Emma and I just played at, it was the night that her album released, and the person hiring us for the gig, it was a private event party, asked us to play like 4 or 5 Taylor Swift songs. So we did. We played clean ones, but we did. We get requested it incessantly. Yeah, I've also taught private students, musical instruments, and they often want to learn Taylor Swift songs. And Taylor Swift songs can be great for beginners to learn. But yeah, it's just, there's a lot mixed in with that she should not be treated as certainly not as a Christian artist, definitely not as a family-friendly artist. And we need to be praying. I mean, I think my last, but how do you have Sabrina Carpenter at a Christian wedding? I've never played Sabrina Carpenter. I've only, maybe people requested at weddings. I don't know. I haven't had that one requested yet, but, I was going to say, I think my last thought for Taylor Swift is that, we need to be praying for her. We need to be praying for her salvation. Can you imagine if Taylor Swift actually got saved? The influence that she would have. I think it's very hard. I think it is, Jesus talks about how hard it is for the rich to enter the kingdom of God. It's like going, a camel going through the eye of a needle, and Taylor Swift is a billionaire. But I don't think it's impossible. I don't think it's impossible by any means. And instead of scorning her, we should be discerning as Christians, but we should also be praying for her, because I would love it if she did become a Christian. The incredible amount of influence that she has in the music sphere, it would be amazing. So yeah. Anyways, I'll probably shut up now. That's my thoughts, my nuanced thoughts on Taylor Swift. Don't love her, don't hate her, think she's somewhat talented, think other people are more talented at other things. I think she's written some good songs. I think she's written some awful songs. I think she's written things in between. But I have my pulse on what she's doing, not because it's my favorite style of music, although I have enjoyed some of her songs. But I have my pulse on what she's doing because, again, as a musician in this industry, I want to know why she's the biggest artist on the planet. I think her lyrics have been a big part of that. She's been able to tap into topics that a lot of people can relate to, and I think that some of that relatability is going away. All right, I'm going to play more. I played What a Beautiful Name before. I'm going to play it again, maybe do it a little more jazzy. to check the YouTube comments here. Why can't I see? Hold on one second. I'm going to check the YouTube comments. Make the chat bigger. Oh my gosh. I don't know why. Okay, there we go. Those sound like lame weddings. A lot of people want Taylor Swift at their wedding. I mean, like sung at their wedding. A lot of people. I mean, Ed Sheeran too. I mean, what do you expect? It says jazz fusion gospel with funk swagger. There you go. Thank you. Yeah, so that was What a Beautiful Name. Obviously not normally done in that style, but Andrew says you could do a melody of What a Beautiful Name into Revelation song. Yeah. It is similar chords actually. That's a really good point. Let me try doing that. Okay, I'm going to do What a Beautiful Name and then Revelation song. Yeah, that works really well, actually. What a Beautiful Name into Revelation song. Yeah. Which leads me into my next thing I'm going to talk about, which is updating you guys on Zoetic stuff. So, first of all, our new EP came out about a month ago, a little over a month ago. It is on all streaming platforms. We are very, very, very proud of music on it. If you guys particularly like really wild, progressive jazz funk fusion stuff, you should check out our song, Are You Entertained? I did all the instruments on that. Emma and I really went crazy on that song. So the whole EP is on all streaming platforms. And I mean, don't just check out Are You Entertained? Listen to the whole thing front to back. There's a lot of variety. It's only 5 songs, and the EP, I believe, is only 17 or 18 minutes. So, I mean, honestly, that's just like a normal drive to get somewhere. So, just stick it on. It helps us, like, so much to have you guys listening to our new EP. New creation. Came out about a month and a half ago. And then, moving into next year, I posted to our stories today that Emma and I are going to take a break from posting reels until the new year, which is quite a while, actually. First of all, part of this is that Emma and I have been, doing the reels, Instagram grind for about 4 years. 4 years of reels posting for like multiple times a week. At minimum once a week, if not multiple times a week. That is, you just run out of things to do. I mean, it's just true. I mean, it's a very, very hard thing to keep up with doing. Now, I will say, we have all sorts of ideas for next year, which is why we're waiting to post reels again until next year. And the reason why we have all sorts of ideas for it is that next year we are releasing a worship album. That is right. That is part of the reason I played What a Beautiful Name today, is that is going to be one of the songs on our jazz worship album. It's going to be called the Jazz Worship Sessions. We just recorded our first 4 songs. One of them was What a Beautiful Name in that jazz gospel style. All of them are in a jazz gospel style. And they're going to be all well-known worship songs. Why? Why are we doing this? Well, part of it is to give me a break from producing original music. I love to write original songs and produce original music, but I've been doing that. We've been doing that nonstop, more or less. I have for the last 7 years. Emma has with me for the last 5 years. So it's a little bit of a brain break there, but that's not the main reason. The main reason we are doing a worship album is because I understand why people say worship music is boring, because it's something that I have thought to myself. But I also find it sad. I find it sad that worship music is boring. And says, just added the whole thing to a playlist on Pandora. God is good, and you don't really hear much Christian jazz. Thank you so much. Yes, please. Anything. It doesn't even matter what streaming platform. Our new EP, new creation, we've put so much intentionality into that with our chord choices, with our key changes, with our lyrics, with everything. So thank you to Stuart. Thank you to Jonas repping the new album. Or you could have actually been talking about the new upcoming worship album, which we will love the support on that too. What we're going to be doing is releasing a new single off of the upcoming worship album every month, if we can, until the whole album is more or less released in September or October. We're shooting for doing 9 to 10 songs. I would really like to do that. And we, like I said, just recorded the first 4 this week, which is very, very exciting. And so the content that we're going to be making next year is going to be a lot of worship and worship team and worship jazz content, because that is the album we're making. So it would make sense that the social media content that we're making is going to go along with that. And that is also why we're taking a break from the reels for the next couple months, so we can get all of that ready to go. It does not make a whole lot of sense to post worship team content when we don't have an album to promote. So that should explain all of that. But yeah, we're really excited. I'm really excited about taking these famous worship songs and putting our own gospel jazz spin on them. Really putting, as spicy chord choices. Not so many that it doesn't serve the song, but quite a few for sure. And Emma gets to sing in her beautiful jazzy gospel style. Emma's told me before, Emma could walk into pretty much any church. I can say this because I'm bragging on her. She's not bragging on herself. But Emma our singer, could walk into pretty much any church and try out for the worship team and get on the team immediately. She has one of the most incredible voices I've ever heard in my life, bar none, and I've heard a lot of people sing. However, Emma has told me that she doesn't feel like she fits in on worship teams because her voice is more jazz and gospel oriented. It's not that kind of normal, like kind of breathier Hillsong sound, which, by the way, nothing wrong with that. It's just not the way that Emma sounds. And so it's been really, really fun to make this album because I've been able to be jazzy and play in that gospel style. And Emma's been able to sing that way. And she's been able to sing these famous worship songs in that way. And so we're just really, really excited for you guys to hear it. We don't want worship music to be called boring ever again. We want to make a worship album that will even appeal to non-Christian musicians. What a witness that could be if non-Christians hear it and they're like, wow, I didn't know those songs could sound that way. That's what I would really, really like. And again, no shade to the original versions of these songs, because they're great songs. Every single song that we've picked to put on this album is a great song, but it is recorded in a very specific way to be accessible for your average congregation. And when you do that, you can't really use the spiciest of chords. It makes sense. You want to make worship music accessible to a congregation, both for a congregation to hear and both for a congregation to play. But Emma and I don't have to do that. And so we're going to go wild and have a lot of fun in the process and worship our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, through the whole thing. So anyways, I'm probably going to get off of here in a second. Just checking to see if there's any other final things. Floated over from Will's channel, the church split. Love Will. Will is a good bud of mine. I did an interview on his channel about the Christian music industry probably a year back. That's Will Hess from the Church Split. Highly, highly recommend his channel if you're into theology. It's very, very interesting. All right, that is going to be it. And I will see you guys next week. Bye.